let us know your name. And starting with a personal value, that brings you to the work that you do, the educational equity work that you do. So share 1 or 2 words about a personal value that you bring with you to your work. And then talk about the role that you play or roles that you play in the work that you do, the organization, and the systems that you're part of. So all of us bring our whole self to our work. So for example, my name is Shelley Hamilton. And the personal value that most guides my educational equity work is courage and compassion. The roles that I bring to the work that I do are a mother of 2 kids at Drake High School. My daughter is a senior, and so she's deep in the college enrollment work. And I also am the facilitator of the College Enrollment Action Team and the communications person. So the systems that I'm most connected with right now are the nonprofit system and the high school education system. And then afterwards, just tell us a little highlight about the milestone of the work that you have been doing. So we'll start here with kindergarten and move on.
Hi, I'm Daphne Cummings. The word or words that kind of came to mind for me were respect and compassion when I am talking with everyone from little tiny children to adults and families. I am a preschool director. I am also a teacher, preschool teacher. I am a mother, and the highlight
from your action team work.
I think the biggest highlight for me has been a closer connection to community partners that I can lean on, talk with, brainstorm, share resources, so that we can better serve our communities.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Close. I think the 2 values that guide my educational equity work would be integrity and grace. I am the director of elementary education in San Rafael City Schools. I am, before all that, a learner, a teacher, a principal, an instructional coach, and a mother of a 7-month-old and a 2.5-year-old. So my worlds right now kind of look like chaos, but really the work I do is in elementary, and I have been really excited to watch and see how the work with the early literacy team has evolved over the past 2 years, because it's evolved a lot, and the way in which I think we in San Rafael are going to really be able to learn from and with some other school districts around really authentic work that we're doing in one of our schools right now.
Great, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Andy Robles. I am the Director of High School and College Success at Bridget Gap College Prep. I like that you said a learner. I like that as educators sometimes, the kids sometimes forget that we are also always learning, and I think that's an important trait to pass on. The 2 traits, or the 2 aspects that I bring to my work is unconditional support and care and patience. I think that the no conditions is really important with the work with our students and in our population. I am also a new father. I have a 1-year-old. So if the tired group, I guess, is and what really connected me to the work by being a new father is this cradle to career model. I was doing the work with Marin Promise and with our own organization prior to my son being born, but now seeing my son grow and now connecting it directly to when he gets into preschool, things I'm doing now as a father, and now projecting it into the K-12 space that I'm a part of, it really helped galvanize a lot of what I do in a surprising way, which I'm sure a lot of you can relate to. I am part of the K-12 system. Bridget Gap College Prep is K-12 and college. I'm part of the College Readiness Action Team, the 8th grade math readiness team, and I'm also a part of the TAM Success Network.
I'm Amy Carter, and I hope someone takes a picture of this room because it is so moving to see so many faces that I get to partner with every day in support of children. I'm really here because I feel like my role on this planet is to be a warrior and an advocate for children. That really defines who I am, and I have to say that sometimes that involves sort of pushing against some of the policies within my own organization in education, and I appreciate the strength of this group in that work. I am a mother of 5 daughters. Yep. Ages 19 to 29, and I am also a grandmother. And I think what has really personalized this work for me over the last 5 years is my son-in-law, Ricardo Diaz. His story is so different from that of my own children. He came over to our country when he was 13, and at the end of the school day, he returned to his home where his single mother was out working, and he had 2 brothers that he had to prepare food for and do homework for. And he describes being on the street with friends of his who told him he was foolish for going to school, foolish for wasting his time. And his story has really internalized for me what we need to be as a community for children that have these stories and these needs from all of us. And my whole lens on equity has really been shaped not only by my work as an elementary principal, a high school principal, an English language teacher, but also by that real human and personal story about what is called for on all of us. And my job. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Education Services in Novato Unified School District.
Hi everybody, my name is Gracie Francisco. What drives me in the work that I get to do is, I think equity is at the center, and also just the opportunity that we have as a community to affect change. Those are the things that kind of push me forward every day. I am a program manager for 10,000 Degrees, and I have the privilege of working with students and families in San Rafael City Schools and Novato Unified, primarily at the middle school and high school level. So that's kind of what I get to do every day. And then outside of 10,000 Degrees, I think I'm the only person on this panel who's not a parent, though I feel like it sometimes. I babysit a lot and work with lots of young people. But yeah, I'm a caregiver. I'm a sister of somebody with special needs. I wear lots of different hats in the community. So, yeah.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Anna Pelleton, Director of School and Community Partnerships for College of Marin. My personal value, I think, would be curiosity, which I've always felt was kind of undervalued. I remember that when in school, when the teacher would say, I want all the bright kids, to do this or that there was never the notion or the importance of asking good questions and thinking deeply about things. And I know that in the work that I do now at the College of Marin, but also in my prior life in the K-12 system, that level of inquiry and curiosity and wanting to know more, and going beyond the why, actually, but who and what and how, and all of those, I think lead to deeper engagement and students really owning their own learning. My roles, once again, within the College of Marin, I'm also a mother of 3 daughters, 60% of me, and I have the white hairs to prove it. And I served, actually, my governance experience, I served for 14 years on the Kentfield School District Board, but also served on the Marin Education Fund Board before the name changed to 10,000 Degrees. And so I'm one, and I think it's interesting, I'm sitting on this end, that starting with early education, and that I've got the white hair. When I started in working in the educational field, my hair was jet black. So as time has passed, and so I think the highlight, I'm going kind of out of order here, then we'll talk more about is really the remarkable work that we've been able to do in partnership with so many of the districts and the community partners in establishing a transition program for high school students who then cross over to college and making sure that we create the stickiness that keeps them.
Thank you all for sharing your whole self today. you all will have a chance to replicate this when you do your activities, to bring your whole self to those conversations. So again, starting back with kindergarten readiness, I know out in West Marin that the Shoreline School District was able to have all of the kindergarten teachers complete the kindergarten student entrance profiles for the kindergartners out there. So Daphne, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the importance of kindergarten readiness and how you see it influencing a child throughout the entire cradle to career journey. And then specifically a little bit about the West Marin team and what you've learned from the KSEP data that you've collected that might inspire others in the community to continue to expand that effort.
So first of all, I want to say that the Shoreline Unified School District has been an amazing partner in this work. So Shoreline Acres is a nonprofit preschool, and one of the other preschools that are in the school district, Paper Mill Children's Creek, is also a nonprofit. So it's been great working together to help support families even before they get into the K-12 system. The KSEP, I am very happy to say, is looking at children's academic readiness, but also, more importantly, I think, as an early childhood person, it is looking at the social emotional readiness of children. And as many preschool teachers will tell you, that's really where we are putting all of our energy and making sure that children can self-regulate, that they can share space and materials, because that is, that's challenging even for some adults, right? So that's not a skill that everyone develops. So I am really appreciative that this assessment tool looks at both academic skills, but also social emotional readiness. So really the KSEP has given us some numbers that we can use, some numbers that we as early childhood people assumed to be true, but it is really difficult to make change, to align, to get funding with assumptions. You really need that data to show, hey, children who go to 2 years of preschool, here's our data, they are more ready at the beginning of kindergarten to be a learner and have self-regulation and participate in kindergarten. So it's great to have those numbers, so I appreciate the KSEP in that way. It has also, so we have been meeting for a year now, is that correct? About a year, as the West Marin K-Readiness action team. We have had so many partners come to the table, so the preschools, not just for Shoreline Unified School District, but for Bolinas as well, and Stinson Beach. So we are really coming all together. We've had Health and Human Services, our library partners, and when we have been talking and sharing what are some of our challenges, it has led to some really out-of-the-box kind of ideas. So we were talking about our challenges with finding substitutes. So it's really difficult to get highly qualified teachers out in West Marin, and we know that children deserve high quality. So Ramona said, well, what if the library were to kind of take this and say, like, well, maybe we could bring together some people and have them be substitutes for all of you. And it's in West Marin, it's kind of centrally located, and we were all like, whoa, I would have never thought of that. That's really out of the box, and but really supportive of the community. So, I mean, I think that's the kind of story that I've taken away with me is if we are all working together and we are all trying to think, like, what can I do to support our families and children, then we can come up with amazing, amazing plans.
Along those lines of the data and working together, I know that, and moving kind of along the continuum here, several of the action teams have started being able to use data that goes beyond the aggregate data that you see on the milestone, on the progress report, to really get into using student level data and sharing that student level data across schools and districts and between nonprofits and schools, which is a new kind of way of looking at data that is not just my school's data, but it's multiple schools and then sharing them with nonprofits. So Stephanie and Andy and Gracie, I know that the action teams that you've been working with have really been able to kind of sink down into that student level data and sharing it, and was wondering if you might say a few words about how using that data has changed how you work, and how the team is working to collect and share that data, and kind of what it's done for the action and the work. So Stephanie?
Yeah, so we, in the past couple of years, have been collecting district-wide data in a number of, besides our state assessments, what are the other things that actually matter more for the teaching, which are the mini assessments or the small formative assessments that happen along the way. And we have the opportunity to work with an incredible data analyst who can help us figure out what's the story here. What are we learning from our data at a district level, at a school level, at a grade level? And this, since we're talking partnerships, this works really nicely with the work we do with P3 as well. And so what in this third grade literacy team that has evolved, I think, significantly in the past 2 years, the conversation we were having this spring was around what does this level of data sharing and analysis look like at a school level, and how are schools starting to use this and partner with the CBOs that are working with their students. And so one of the things we're seeing, for example, as a district is in first grade, there's something going on with reading where kids aren't making quite as much progress as we'd like, specifically in first grade, regardless of where they come in. And at San Pedro Elementary School, they had been digging into that story too and trying to figure out what's going on. And so the work that we're going to be doing is really thinking about how are we supporting our first grade students at San Pedro all day long. And for San Pedro, for those who don't know, most of our students we pull from the canal, but in the canal we only have space for one school. And so San Pedro, all of our students are bused there. So their all day is really all day for most of those students. It is from when they get on the bus in the morning to when the bus drops them off in the evening. And that's a lot of time that we have with them. And how are we spending that time and partnering with our after-school programs and other CBOs? And so that level of data sharing that we are continuing but really diving into with this work with Marin Promise is going to be really thinking about very small and specific student groups and how the supports we're putting in, are those working? Do we need to swap them out because it's working here, it's not working here? And I'm really excited to partner with Novato around that because I think they're trying something very similar. And so there's a lot of learning that I think will drastically improve our work over time because there's two of us trying it and figuring it out together.
Great. Mandy, in math, how is that going and using that data in the math team?
Yeah, so the math data that we share, I think what I really like, and kind of to your point, is that I know when I first started at the Marin Promise teams, both the math and the college readiness, you know, we saw a lot of the data that we see up here on the board, which is, you know, the affluent, primarily Caucasian population versus the low SES students of color. But then when we started to disaggregate some of that data, and because of the math team is specific to the Marin City middle schools transitioning primarily to TAM, it was interesting to see how the implications of that data that we're looking on a broader scale, when you drill down to not just low SES students of color, but the African American students, the Latino students, the Asian students, et cetera, and the interventions that we're applying sort of broadly, how that maybe looks different with different populations. As of right now, you know, because we're working with Marin City students, we were able to gauge sort of the trends generally. You know, when we started to look at the broad scale, we looked at the general trends. But with the student level data, what really helped is when we talked that out in the groups. In the math readiness team, when we talked about certain interventions, how Bayside MLK versus Willow Creek Bayside MLK, the groups are actually separated. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade are actually separated into pods of math groups. And what I liked about it is the middle school teachers, the CBOs, 10,000 Degrees, the volunteers, we're all at the same table at these math teams talking about, in the 8th grade group that is higher performing versus the lower performing. You know, when we look at the numbers, there were similarities and differences that we had to hash out. And what I mean by that is, like, we had to actually go into literally student by student and talking about student by student and talking it out and really airing out the frustrations about how it looks different. And it really talking about the emotional aspect, really, and that's something we talked about at the Cradle Career conferences. As educators, how was it affecting us before we were able to implement any changes with the students? And I think that was really what I took away from the math teams, is when we shared data, it wasn't just the numbers, it was the experiences. And you know, I remember the first few meetings in the math team, it felt more like a support group. We were talking about what wasn't working, right? And I think that's something that we was lost, I think, at the beginning, is we started to talk about the nuts and bolts of the interventions, and we realized when we looked around the room, we were getting a little bit upset